Bengal tiger, second biggest tiger species behind the Amur tiger, formerly known as the Siberian tiger. This is another accept your fate moment. There's not a way out of that situation. One of the big things during World War II, the Soviet army was using essentially kamikaze dogs was one of the terms that ended up coming out of it, but they were literally strapping mines to dogs and having them run under German tanks. Like, that's what they were trained to do. This is definitely the animal I don't want to be in the water with. Crocs are super dangerous, and the reality of that situation is not his arm popping out still attached to his body. They have the strongest bite force of any animal.
Eso, got one. Nice.
Alright, looks like we're gonna get into some fishing. Fish are awesome. We got a ton of them. There's like over 20,000 species of fish identified at this point. One of the big things we get a lot is that 3-second memory thing. Everybody hears memory of a goldfish. And fish actually can have pretty substantial memories, and they have substantial lifetimes too. So goldfish can live up to 20 years. They're highly social animals in some cases. They're super solitary animals in other cases. So we can do a lot of healthcare behaviors, and a lot of that's just based on conditioning, and we need them to have a good memory to do that. So pelicans are going to be big birds. They are another one that's pretty social. They can live in really big colonies. Definitely animals we see people interact with because we share a lot of the same space. These guys are living in coastal areas. They're living around kind of shallow water, so they're interacting with fishermen and stuff like that. You will see people feeding them. You will see those relationships get built, but the biggest thing with pelicans is they are meant to eat fish and only fish. They're opportunistic, so you'll see them pick up all kinds of other stuff. They may go after little reptiles, amphibians, some small birds, even some small mammals, but they're really only meant to digest fish. They have enzymes in their stomach that are made just to do that. That's one of the big things that we always talk to people about, is not feeding wildlife, and that's a really good example of why. As far as the leopard species go, that's gonna likely be a jaguar, which very dangerous animals, very strong bite force. On our side of the zoo industry, we definitely try not to share space with any kind of animal like that.
How did you get in here, bro?
So it's tough seeing animals in conditions like that. I mean, we talk about animal abuse a lot, and seeing an animal locked in a container like that, obviously we know bad things are going to come from it. With people, we use terms like PTSD. We don't often apply a ton of kind of human behaviors to animals. That kind of anthropomorphism that is kind of one of the things we try to push against, because we don't always know how animals are thinking or how they're going to react to things, but always see a big change in behavior. We see animals that experience abuse are often a lot more sensitive to people or to any kind of stimulus. They're going to react very strongly, whether it's with aggression or whether it's just trying to shrink away and get away from situations like that. Seem like kind of a smaller part of our lives, that an animal's just going to be over in this space and it's no big deal, has a huge impact on their emotional and mental well-being, and even their physical well-being, how they kind of interact with anything in their life from that point forward. Boom Boom's a great name. I'm feeling like it's gonna fit him.
How dare you?
That is a big rooster.
Everything you want, and this is how you thank me?
They can definitely be pretty aggressive animals. I would say that's a little intense, maybe a little exaggerated. If we're seeing a rooster in this kind of situation, it's definitely gonna have some cockfighting connotations to it, and they're substantially more dangerous in that situation. So Riot Vest definitely gonna be a good option, protect those vital organs. Mostly they're kind of more dangerous to kids or people that are much smaller stature, where that spur on the back of their heel is really what's going to kind of come for your eyes and things like that. But for adults, they're not necessarily the most pleasant bird to be around all the time, but they're not a tremendous danger. So I would say realistically, it's unlikely that Chicharron's going to be doing this much damage to multiple dogs. I would say one-on-one, if he's got the gaffs, especially if they look like they've got some supernatural or intense element to them, they could probably do some damage, but dog army is going to be a little more than Chicharron's probably going to be able to handle at this point. One of the big things during World War II, the Soviet army was using essentially kamikaze dogs was one of the terms that ended up coming out of it, but they were literally strapping mines to dogs and having them run under German tanks. Like, that's what they were trained to do. Doesn't seem to have been abandoned for ethical reasons. It seems like they were more concerned about encountering dogs, creating a friendly fire situation. by returning to their trainer with a mine attached to them instead of going back to the tank. Personally, if you're going to strap a bomb to a dog, I feel like it's fair game at that point. But alright, we're going to get into some cockfighting, blood sport. Another one that has been around like as long as humans have. There's fortunately laws going on like across the entire United States now, but a lot of laws have gone into place because these kind of situations like this, the chickens are bred for this, they're trained to do this their whole life, and normally it's not even going to be like a happy situation leading up to it. They're typically chained up to things, they're injected with steroids and stuff like that. Both birds typically get injured enough to end up both dying, but there's some instances too of handlers, the actual cockfighters, getting injured or killed by their own birds. There was a story out of the Philippines a few years ago with a police chief during a raid that tried to pick up one of the birds, and the gaff slashed his femoral artery and he ended up bleeding out and dying. That idea of kind of developing empathy for those animals is really hard to do when at a young age you're exposed to them being in these violent situations with cockfighting and dogfighting and things like that. So they're not like particularly big animals in the sense that, you know, an arrow is not going to be an acceptable solution, I guess. A male can get up over 170 pounds. Very big, very strong, super social, hyper social animals. They live in packs that are dominated by an alpha male and alpha female. And usually the rest of the pack is made up by their kids. The weirdest part of this is that like kind of traditional like kung fu movie, action movie where like there's like one guy coming at you at a time. Whereas in a real situation, wolves being so social, communicating with each other so much, likely to be a lot closer and working together versus all like kind of running at somebody. Wolf howls are unique to the individual. Often they're used for social purposes or, you know, acknowledging their territory, but being such close-knit communities, they're going to react and respond to each other when somebody is in a dangerous situation very quickly. Oh, poor goat. Goats are the best. Goats are awesome animals. They're super smart. The first animals I ever trained were goats. They're like dogs, I feel like. They're a lot of fun. Another North American staple in terms of large predators in the area. Another one that was kind of pushed out of its normal range here and then is starting to find its way back. Really cool animals, strong bite force, very intense predators, very dangerous. Grizzly, even less something I'd want to wake up. Another animal we see a lot in movies and stuff like that. One of the cool things you kind of just saw, the game developers kind of got a little behavior in there, which you can see kind of like lifts his lip a little bit, and it's a really common thing people see bears do in, you know, movies and TV and documentaries and things like that. That part where their nose kind of wiggles and their lip goes up. Bears have something called a Jacobson's organ, and there's quite a few animals that have this, and they're actually using that organ to be able to smell. It's kind of pulling those particles from the air, and they're able to kind of get a better smell off the wind, and they can run fast for fairly short distances, but definitely more than enough to catch up to a person. The kids are great climbers. They can get up trees pretty easily, but a 900-pound male or 800-pound male is not going to be getting up a tree, but standing 9 feet tall, they're going to be able to reach a lot higher than you're going to be able to get up. Still, a tree's not maybe a great solution either. Bison, another animal that's numbers have recovered in America quite a bit. That looks like an American bison. People think these animals are going to be approachable. We see this every year in national parks where people are like, oh, I can get out and walk up to it, and then, you know, somebody gets seriously injured or killed. But I would say that headshot that's lined up right now also is maybe the riskier shot at the moment, as they do have such strong skulls that are used in that male competition where you'll see that headbutt. Like I said, realistically, most animals want nothing to do with us. They just kind of want to move on with life. So, Dole's another hyper-social canid, not crazy closely related to wolves. They're also called the Asiatic or Asian wild dogs, so kind of Asia's equivalent to the African wild dog or the African painted dog. They can live in groups of like up to 40 animals or so. Social animals, they're working together. So they're able to take down prey the same size as some of the big things that tigers and leopards are going after. Black lion. So these are not real. African lions as individuals will kind of have that varying trait. You'll see some with a darker mane than others. With the true black-maned lions, or Ethiopian lions, not many of them left. They were thought to be extinct for a super long time. And just in like 2016, really small population was found in Ethiopia of about 50 animals. Snakes, we got some rattlesnakes. Another one you're gonna find all over the place. would not get close. But rattlesnake bites can be obviously pretty bad, but you're going to experience two kinds of potential envenomations. There's hemotoxic venom that's going to affect the blood, and then you've got neurotoxic venom that's going to affect the brain. There's no such thing as a poisonous snake. There are venomous snakes. So poison is going to be something you ingest, and the toxicity affects you that way. Anything with a mouth can bite. When somebody tells you something, oh, it doesn't bite, it's not dangerous, anything can hurt you. Now, this is definitely the animal I don't want to be in the water with. Crocs are super dangerous, and the reality of that situation is not his arm popping out still attached to his body. They have the strongest bite force of any animal, and that is definitely not happening. No one is breaking a croc jaw with their bare hands. Crocs and gators can both kind of propel themselves out of the water pretty high. Yeah, I would never be in the water. I would be zigzagging my way across whatever land is in front of me trying to get away. But yeah, one bite and that's the end of whatever limb that was attached to. Compared to human bite force, which is about 126 pounds per square inch, 3,700 is substantially more. Bengal tiger, second biggest tiger species behind the Amur tiger, formerly known as the Siberian tiger. This is another accept your fate moment. There's not a way out of that situation. Very big predators. I always say they're like the ninjas of the forest. You do not hear them coming. We always try to push too. Animals are not hunting people. Very rarely. Rhinos coming in to save the day. Okay. Guessing all of this to be in Asia at this point. Owls are an awesome bird of prey. Huge variety in the animal in terms of both like physiology and behavior. There's owls that are less than 6 inches tall. There's owls that are 2.5 feet tall. We primarily think of them as being nocturnal predators, but there are diurnal and crepuscular owls. So crepuscular is generally talking about kind of those twilight hours. It is not a hard and fast rule. It's kind of more of an anecdotal thing, but if you see an owl with darker colored eyes, it's more likely to be a nocturnal hunter. If you see them with the orange or yellow colored eyes, more likely to do some crepuscular and diurnal hunting as well. Some raptors can actually see into the ultraviolet spectrum, which is believed that's one of the ways that they are able to spot rodents and things like that. Their eyes are fixed in their sockets, so instead of moving their eyes around like we do, they actually just turn their heads, and they can turn their head almost the whole way back. In North America, we refer to them as caribou when they're in the wild, but when they're tamed, not tamed, but when they're domesticated, we refer to them as reindeer. Cool caribou fact, the only deer species where males and females both grow antlers, but they both shed them at different times and start growing them at different times. So if we were looking at Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, him still having antlers around Christmas would indicate that he's likely a female and not a male reindeer. Just a little weird aside. Pigs are awesome. I guess I should equate this to wild boar hunting, not being such a problem in the southern United States and stuff like that, but these guys are just some domestic pigs hanging out. These guys do tend to get pretty big as well. Another one that a lot of people want as pets. They will outgrow the house. I think in gaming, you have the opportunity to do things without consequences. But that being said, that's not the kind of thing that's going to inspire empathy or make us feel like they're really a being worthy of being treated well. So that's kind of a bummer to see, but I think as we're going to take a look at Stray, I think that's a good example playing from first person perspective. I think that's a really cool way to kind of approach things. I think they did a great job. Alright guys, thanks for joining us. For more Experts React videos, please check out Gamology's Facebook and YouTube channels, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Here's what you can do to help. Take a little time at the grocery store and read the labels that you wouldn't normally do, and look for sustainably sourced products.